Hey, I'm finally on. I am so sorry. I don't know what was happening. Here it is, 5:11 p.m. my time. I have spent the last 11 minutes trying to log on to here. I don't know if something was going on with YouTube or with my own personal Wi-Fi. I do apologize. Anybody who's ever done a live stream, you type in all your information, you click all your buttons, everything, and then you go to the part where it says go live. So you're sitting there and there's this circle spinning. About to go live. You're about to go live. I kept waiting and waiting. You're about to go live. And I wasn't going live. I was sitting here dead in the water. So I had to log out and log back in. I know of a few of you were already with me, and I typed a little message saying that I was having some technical difficulties. Please bear with me. And now I don't see any of you back here, so hopefully you will find me. And anyway, it's good to be here in some capacity or another. Gosh, I hope my audience comes back. I hope I haven't alienated you. All of you are so loyal, and I'm so grateful to have you with me. So I'm trying to just stall here for a bit, talking in the moment to see if anyone will log back on. If not, you'll find me soon enough. And here's my cat, Sasha, who's, well, okay, she's going to jump up here soon enough. She's always making cameo appearances, sometimes with this show, and then other times it's when I'm doing the Tuesday show with Dr. Whimsy, Taco Tuesday. Sasha, what do you want to do? Here you go. Here's Sasha. Here she is. She's making her appearance for the day. Yes. Yes, Sasha, you're a star. And you know, Siamese cats are descended from royalty. Literally descended from royalty. It's in their DNA. The wonderful woman who breeds Siamese cats in San Diego that I got her from was telling me a lot of the history, and then I researched it further. Yeah, at one time, the only way you could own a Siamese cat was if it had been gifted to you by the king of Siam, etc., etc., etc. Usually, I think of the king of Siam. I think of Anna and the king, and the 69 children, and all of that. But I think this was a Siamese king who predated that one. I'd have to check my history, but Siamese cats were used to guard the palace. And as far-fetched as that may sound, if you've ever had a Siamese cat, they can, where are you, Sasha? They can be rather ferocious when they need to be, and they're fiercely possessive, and they are protective. They're also very sweet and loving. Summer solstice, June 21st, was the 10-year anniversary of when I drove down to San Diego. Look at her. I drove down to San Diego to pick up this little 10-week-old kitten. She's now 10 years old. But oh my God, I can't believe I've had her that long. And I keep in touch with the woman who breeds the cats. Hi, Kathy. Thank you for joining me back. I'm so sorry for all of the technical issues. Why I couldn't be on. But she's a lovely lady named Diane Kramer. She breeds her Siamese cats to be healthy and strong. She breeds with integrity, avoids a lot of the pratfalls of inbreeding, like many of the Siamese cats you get in pet stores and that type of thing. Her cats are very healthy and strong. Sasha is 10 years old, and she has the energy more energy than when she was 10 weeks old. And Diane was telling me that her cats typically on average live at least 20 years, sometimes even longer. So I always send her pictures on the 10-year anniversary and on Sasha's birthday and around Christmas time. Sasha was very special. And Diane said she got close with her. She has several mother cats. She has one stud Siamese. And she added a very, very happy-go-lucky stud Siamese, and then 4 females that are mothers, to be bred. And I don't know how many times a year she breeds them. I know she's very, very careful about that, not to overbreed. And she takes excellent care of her cats. She loves what she does, and she tries to breed Siamese cats as they used to be, authentic Siamese cats when they first came to America and Europe in the 1800s. There's been a lot of horrible inbreeding and changes made. Let me show you. Sorry, Sasha. But Sasha has like a round head and a broad face, and she looks like a normal cat, normal Siamese. And there's this tendency now to breed Siamese, so they have these very narrow faces and these big ears. And Diane was telling me those cats are so dangerously inbred that they tend to be sickly, very frail. They often don't live to be more than 6 or 7 years old. And she feels it's immoral that's even being done. She said that's not what Siamese cats were meant to be. Anyway, Sasha is authentic and true blue, but it's very funny. Diane was very attached to this particular kitten. There were 2 males and 2 females. And no, Sasha has not had kittens. I had her spayed when she was about, I think, 7 months. I think I did, I waited until the right age, but I wanted to do it before she went into her first heat. I consulted with vets and I was told that was the proper time to do it. Anybody who's ever had a cat that's gone into heat will tell you from firsthand experience, it is not a pleasant experience. I had this wonderful cat many years ago that I had not spayed soon enough. She went into heat, and this darling little angelic cat turned into the whore of the night. You're like, she was rubbing her rear end against my couch and jumping in the window and howling. And I swear to goodness, there were male cats outside my door hearing all this. I felt like a protective father. So I didn't want to go through this with Sasha, and I got her spayed on time. But there were 2 males and 2 females in the litter. And Diane was saying that, well, she wasn't named Sasha yet, but my future Sasha stood out in the litter. Very, her personality, her fierce independence. She didn't want anything to do with her siblings and barely anything to do with her mother. She would come long enough to nurse, to be fed by her mother. And then Sasha would go off into the kitchen where Diane had an open kitchen drawer, and she'd get in the drawer to sleep. She wanted to be by herself. And I've always thought, she was doing that to send a message to let me know that's the kitten to pick. Because Diane sent me a video on her phone of the kittens. I purposely requested a female because my last Siamese cat had been a male. I had been so close to that cat. I mean, he was like as close to human as any dog or cat I've ever had. Just an amazing animal. I loved him so much. And when he died, I've told this before, he died at just almost at the stroke of midnight on New Year's Eve, as 2014 was turning into 2015. He didn't want to go into 2015. He had been very ill, for about 2.5 months beforehand. I spent a fortune trying to save his life. My vet bills were just insane. But you know how it is when you love a pet. They're like a kid to you, and you just do everything you possibly can. Hi, Andy. Thank you for joining. You do everything possibly you can to save their life. And he had cancer, and I put him through a surgery, hoping that was going to save him. And it didn't. He just got increasingly more ill. And I was coming home from work, pureeing cat food in the blender, and putting it in a syringe and force feeding him. He didn't want to eat anymore. He was basically saying, "It's okay. Let me go. It's okay. It's my time. It's time to go." I was keeping him alive, and I realized now. And I talked to another person who went through a similar thing, and we were both in agreement. We were keeping our pets alive for us, not so much for them, because they were saying to us they wanted to go. They wanted to transition. And I just couldn't bear. I couldn't bear for him to pass away, but he finally passed away just before midnight on that New Year's Eve. Needless to say, I was devastated. I mourned for that cat like a person. I was also going through a big transitional period, a big move between apartments, and I knew even if I wanted to get another cat, I couldn't do it. It was just impossible. I took Charlie. Charlie died because he died. That was his name, Charlie. My last Siamese cat died just before New Year's Eve. So New Year's Day, I couldn't get him cremated. Everything was closed. I had no choice. People think this is creepy, but you do what you have to do. I wanted him to be properly cremated. I didn't want to just throw him away. So I wrapped him up in a lot of plastic and I put him in my freezer. I didn't know what else to do. And then January 2nd, first thing in the morning, I drove out to Pasadena, which is near here in Los Angeles, where I live, about 20 minutes away, to the SPCA. And this is something I've told before, but I'm going to say it again, because a lot of pet cemeteries will play upon your emotions. And they will try to get you to spend a lot more money than you should be spending. They'll try to talk you into spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars. I don't know what the SPCA charges now, because it's been 10 years, but at the time it was $65. $65. And they cremated Charlie and they put him in a beautiful little tin, a little tin box with a little flower on top. And then they put that in a beautiful little purple velvet drawstring bag. It was done with such class and dignity. But that was hard for me. I was crying in the car. I loved that cat so much. And it was just the hardest thing. When he was dying near the end, I had a friend give me a big boot box to put him in, to put his body in when the time came. And I couldn't help but think of the irony, because he was a cat I got in a pet store. I know now not to do that, but that's where he came from, a pet store. And they put him in a cardboard carrier. And that's how I first brought him home, in a cardboard carrier, a cardboard box. So there was the irony, the sad irony. I was taking him out of my home in another cardboard box. And I knew I wanted another Siamese cat. It's the only cat I've ever had in my life. Since I was 11 years old, I've only had Siamese cats. I know, yes, we should adopt cats. There are plenty of cats who need homes. We shouldn't be buying from breeders. I hear all that. But I love the characteristics of a Siamese cat. I love the intelligence. I love the personality. I love the beauty, the elegance. Someone once said to me, a Siamese cat is a cross between a monkey and a swan. And it's so true, right, Sasha? She's right here out of camera range here. And when I was at the SPCA in Pasadena, in my sorrow, I went in the back area after I dropped Charlie's box off, and I went back to look at kittens, and there was this little black and white kitten who just wrapped his paws like that, wrapped around my finger. I was just holding on to me, like, take me home. And I was like, I can't take you home. I can't. I'm moving and I'm going through all this emotional turmoil. But I did ask, and they said, oh no, he's being held. He's already been adopted. And I thought, okay, I better get out of here, because I don't know about the rest of you, but whenever I go to an animal shelter, I want to adopt every single dog and cat in there. I can't help it. They're looking at you and they're all saying, "Take me home. Will you give me my forever home?" And I'm like, I can't, I want to. But anyway, I did my research. I went online. I was looking for Siamese cat breeders. I didn't want to go through the debacle of a pet store again. I think that Charlie was only 14 when he died of cancer. And I sometimes wonder if it was because he was too inbred. He should have lasted longer than that, much longer, and he should have been healthier. Because he had some health issues before that. 5 years earlier, I ran up it was over $5,000 in vet bills. The poor thing had to have 3 surgeries in 1 week. And that's a whole other story to itself. But again, we do what we do for love, and I realize, maybe pets come to us to teach us life lessons. And I think the life lesson there was unconditional love. You never put money first over love and saving a life. You just, that was hard for me. I couldn't afford it. I mean, I was just maxing out credit cards, and it was a real hardship for me. But when it came down to values, what I value, I thought this cat's life matters far more to me than any money in the world. So I just kept. It started out at $1,800. Middle of the week, it was like $3,000. By the Friday of that week, it was over $5,000. I took him home. We didn't even know if he was going to live. He was like a limp rag doll. He had that cone on his head, which they call the Elizabethan collar. That in itself sounds like a torture device. And for a cat, that is a torture device because, cats like to lick themselves. They like to clean, groom themselves. Just even eating and drinking water was an ordeal for him with that big lampshade on his head. But they said to me, "You've got to leave it on him," because he had because of all those surgeries, he had so many stitches, like going all the way down his abdomen, and cats will pull out stitches if you don't do that. But cats are very secretive. They don't want us to know how smart they are. They don't want us to know how much they can actually do. But I caught him. He actually was taking his paws, like hands and arms, and pulling the collar. He was pushing the cone off his head. Doing that, I actually caught him, and I had to keep putting it on him. And I finally had to take him back to the vet. We had to take 12 feet of a gauze ace bandage and tie it. We had to tie it on him, tie it under his arms. I swear, almost like not a straitjacket. No, he wasn't immobilized, but we had to wrap it around his arms, tie it around him, tie it around his back, just so he could not pull the cone off his head. I had no idea cats had that kind of dexterity and intelligence, but they do. They're very smart. I have caught Sasha just, because she's an observer. She knows the door, the front door. You turn, there she is right now. You turn the doorknob and the door opens. So I caught Sasha taking her paws. She wasn't successful, of course, but she was trying to turn the doorknob to open the door so she could go out. And she was like, "Whoops, you caught me doing that." Yeah, Sasha. But they're very intelligent. I have known of cats that can actually mimic the human language, the English language. I've heard it firsthand, where they can actually enunciate a word or two. And I was telling that to someone, and they were saying there was this night they had some guests come over, and the cat was getting in the way and jumping up on the dinner table and stuff. So they put the cat, just for the time being, in their basement. It was a nice basement, but they put the cat in the basement and shut the door. Well, the cat was, of course, beating and pounding on the door, and they heard they said it was unmistakable. The cat went, "Help me! Help me!" It was actually forming the words, "Help me!" And the guests, everybody's like, They were spooked by it. Did that cat just talk? It did. And if you ever had friends have had parrots or cockatoos, they not only do they learn to talk, they learn to answer you back, express their opinions. The big myth is that when a parrot learns to talk, they're just like a tape recorder and they're just mimicking the sounds of what they hear. No, I knew someone who had a parrot. Her name was Laura, my friend. And whenever she'd leave the room, the bird would go, "Laura, come in here. Laura, come in here." And things like that. And once when I was in Hawaii, I was staying with some friends who had a parrot, and the parrot learned to perfectly mimic the sound of the telephone ringing. I mean, perfectly. You could not distinguish between the bird and the phone, and the bird. There's very intelligent creatures. I mean, I've heard some of them are as smart as a 5-year-old child. That bird knew to mimic the phone, so you'd have to drop what you were doing to come into the room to be with them. Ring, ring. And then I had another friend who had a parrot. Might as well tell this also. The bird learned how to perfectly mimic the sound of her husband's farting. Perfectly. And my friend said it drove her crazy to the point where she's ready to get rid of the bird. She couldn't stand it. It was so vulgar, disgusting. But the bird, for some reason, latched onto that. So anyway, I guess that's getting around to saying this last week, June 21st, was the 10-year anniversary of my bringing Sasha home. I waited almost 6 months before I got another cat. And I was saying earlier, I did some research with Siamese cat breeders. And there was one breeder up near that sounds awful to say, a cat breeder up around San Diego, San Jose, that area. And I almost got a kitten from her. But here was the kicker. She said, "I don't allow people to pick out their cats. I pick it out for them and send it to them by, I guess she put them in a crate on a plane and sent them." But I said, "You mean I can't come up there and pick out my own cat?" And she said, "No, I don't allow that. I don't allow that." I mean, she was very eccentric. And I said, "Well, I'm sorry, but if I can't pick out my own cat, I regretfully cannot do business with you." But then I found Diane in San Diego. She had a really nice website. I had a good feeling about her, and I called her on the phone, and we just started chatting and talking. And I was telling her about Charlie, and she wanted to see pictures of him, and I sent, and she put me on the waiting list. And she said, I've got a breed. I've got what's the word for it? I know there's a correct word for this. I'm just going to say a batch of kittens that's going to be born in late March. And so I got on the waiting list, and I purposely requested a female, because my last cat was a male. And I thought, if I'm going to get another Siamese that's going to look so much like him, I want a different. I mean, I want like to have different pronouns, just have that difference, just psychologically. And another reason I got a female was because Charlie, one of the reasons he had all those surgeries, male cats have a horrible predisposition toward cystitis, where their bladder and urinary tract gets clogged up with crystallized urine stones. It's very deadly, and it happens commonly to male cats after a certain age. And that was why I had to do 3 surgeries in 1 week. They couldn't find all the stones, and they had to keep reopening him back up. They would operate on him, and then he'd get clogged up again. It was horrifying. But anyway, females, because they have a wider, and I forget I think it's a shorter. I forget if it's longer or shorter, the urethra, but it's wider, And female cats almost never have this problem. So I thought, okay, I'm definitely going with a female cat this time. And I spoke to a trusted psychic I was working with at the time. And she said, well, you know that Charlie in the spirit world picked out his successor for you. And she said, yes, it is definitely a female. It's going to be another Siamese, and it hasn't been born yet. Okay, this is where you may think I'm a nut, but she said to me, he brought different cat souls to me, and she said that Sasha here, where are you, picked me out and wanted to be with me, and she felt it was going to be a good match. So she said the cat has not even incarnated yet. And I spoke to Diane, and she said, well, my mother cat is going to be pregnant soon, and in a few weeks she'll be giving birth. And I went back to psychic, and she said, oh yes, that's the one. She's going to come through her. And anyway, I said, how am I going to know which one is meant for me? And she said, you're definitely going to know. She's going to give you signs. So it was after the kittens were born in March. Oh, Sasha, you sweet little girl. It was after the kittens were born in March, late March. Obviously they needed a few weeks to be with their mother, before they could be weaned. But Diane sent me a video with two, because I'd requested a female. So she sent me a video with the two female Siamese kittens. And so Sasha was already, she was being a little bitch. She was bullying her sister and pushing her out of the picture and stuff. And I thought, I think that might be her. I think that might be her. And then Diane, remember earlier I said how Sasha didn't want anything to do with her other three siblings, and she barely wanted anything to do with her mother. And she was going off into the kitchen and sleeping in the drawer. She was being by herself. And Diane said she definitely stands out from the litter. She's got a very distinct personality. And I just knew that was her telling me, hey, I incarnated to be with you, and you better pick me out. Anyway, what really cinched the deal, she sent me a really cute video of her once I said that I was interested in her. And she was like 9, 2 weeks old, little tiny thing. And she was feisty and fiery. And then she started to get sleepy in her little head, and she just nodded off and almost fell off the table. It was so funny. I said, oh yeah, there's no question. That's my cat. She's meant to be mine. I said, okay, wrap her up and charge her. I'll come down and pick her up. And, when the time is right. And I drove down to San Diego and got her. And it was amazing. It was this apartment. I just moved in not long earlier. But Sasha, she acted like she was completely familiar. She knew where everything was. Like she'd been here before. Been here, in fact, many times before. And so that's my little Sasha story. I wasn't even planning on talking about that today. But that's the beauty of doing these live streams. You just go in the moment. And I haven't even looked at my comments here. Let's see. But anyway, I've got Kathy, and I've got Andy, and I've got Joyce here. I thank you all for being here. Joyce, Ward and I were in a different chat room. Hope he finds the stream. Yeah, you know what happened, Joyce? I don't know if you saw the very beginning of the show. I was having a lot of trouble logging on. It took me almost 11 minutes. You know this yourself, Joyce, because you've done your live streams where, you type in all your information, click all your buttons and everything. And then you get to that last stage where there's this circle that spins around and said, you're going live. You're going live. You're going live. Well, that circle just kept spinning. You're going live. You're going live. I'm like, okay, when am I going live? And I just realized this isn't happening. So I had to log out and then start all over again from scratch, type all the information back in, punch in and all. So anyway, that's why I'm late. And that's why you were in different chat rooms. So thank you for finding me. Let's see. Let's see. I'm looking at some comments here. Oh yeah, I've a video where a cat barks like a dog. I've seen where that happens, where cats are raised around dogs and they start mimicking the behavior of the dogs. And I've also seen vice versa, dogs that are around cats and they start acting like cats. They like start climbing up things like a cat and trying to keep up with all their activities. It's so funny. Maybe some of you have had experiences. I've certainly various times in my life, I've had dogs and cats at the same time, but I've never had it go that far. And it's been many years since I had multiple pets. I think I had told on here once that my all-time record, or record sounds like reckless, I had in a one-bedroom apartment, I had a Cocker Spaniel, a cat, a cockatoo, a big white bird, cockatoo. I had 2 parakeets and an aquarium. And I had to laugh. And it was one year we had an earthquake. And there's that myth, and I say myth, that animals can tell when an earthquake's about to happen and they will alert you. Well, I had pets encompassing land, sea, and air. Not one of them did anything to indicate that an earthquake was about to happen. I was like, yawn, this is boring, But I can't believe I had that many pets. But it was a time in my life where I enjoyed having them. It was a challenge, like when I'd go on a big trip, like to Europe or something for a couple of weeks. And I'd have to find pet sitters to take care of all of them. And it was expensive and all. But I enjoyed it. But now I'm at a point in my life, and I'm sure some of you can relate to this. When you get older, you want to simplify your life. You want less complication. And I am fine with my image is reversed here, I think. So I'm pointing this way. I am fine with just Sasha. Plus, Sasha has this personality and the energy of about 10 different pets. So I get, she's kind of like a package deal here, and she's more than enough to contend with. And I also love the simplicity of cats. I love dogs dearly. I love them, but it's just, there's so much work, and you have to plan your life around them. You have to schedule your life around them. Something I'm going to talk about. I went to Palm Springs this weekend. It was like a 12-hour day trip, but if I'd had a dog, I couldn't have done that. Cats, you leave them food, water, and a litter box. They're fine. Plus, they sleep like 20 hours a day, and Sasha's a very independent cat anyway. She may, don't go. But once I'm gone, she's probably like Tom Cruise in Risky Business. Remember when he's dancing in his underwear to that old time rock and roll? He's got a bottle of beer in his hand. He's partying. I suspect she's like that when I leave. I do have little security cameras in here. I have a couple of them, and I do check in on her when I'm gone. And sometimes I see her boing, 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 bouncing around, but most of the time she's sleeping. But those little cameras are just a godsend. I remember when they first came out, they were like something like $125, the little tabletop camera. Now you can go to Best Buy and get them for under $25. Just little tiny cameras. You set them up, you can mount them on the wall, or you can put them on your table or something. And then you just take your phone and you got an app and you can click on the different cameras and see what's going on in your home. It's peace of mind. It's very cheap, very cheap. So I highly recommend them. What are some other comments here? Kathy, why do they say that cats have 9 lives? Well, Kathy, have you ever had a cat? They are constantly getting into trouble. They're constantly doing death-defying acts. I mean, crazy, crazy stuff. I've heard of cats jumping off 2 and 3 story buildings and landing on their feet and being fine, but they're always getting into mischief. I think that's where it comes from. The idea they've got 9 lives. I think they have much more than that. They seem to be able to survive anything, but they're amazing animals because they're so loving and they're so sweet. But at the same time, cats have a lot of the elements of the wild still in them. The way they run and they climb and they jump. I have caught her like on top of my curtain rods. I've caught her in the kitchen, like in the very highest shelves. She manages to open the cabinets and get in up there. I mean, there is no such thing as putting things out of my cat's reach. She can get into anything. And I've told on here, I can't have a Christmas tree because of her. I can't. She destroys them. She destroys the ornaments. I mean, I have done things like tie them on wire ornaments to the branches. I've tied the tree down. I have a really nice, expensive artificial Christmas tree, but she climbs out of it, bends all the branches down, pulls the branches out. I mean, it's a losing proposition. I had to just give up on it. Realizes in her lifetime I will never have a Christmas tree again. That was a big sacrifice. I also have 3 beautiful leather chairs here that I have to keep covered up in blankets. They might as well just be old chairs from Goodwill or something, or like that chair on Frasier, because you can't ever enjoy the chairs or see them. They have to be covered. The one time I thought, well, I'll take a chance. I won't cover the chair up. Well, within one day, scratches and rips, and she had dug holes. Like there were a couple of holes where she had punctured her claws into it. And I said, okay, I can't do this. Can't do this. So Sasha is the boss of this home. She rules. I just live here. I just pay the rent and I just feed her and I scoop her litter box out, but it's her home. She rules. She's back there, washing her face and licking herself and very nonchalant. Let's see, where's some other comments here. Oh, hey, Danny, thank you for joining. I've got several people here. It's just really nice you're here joining me. Thank you for the people who joined my friend Anastasia, who launched her first live stream last Monday. She committed to doing Monday through Friday for the first week, and of course saw it was a bit too much. So right now she's going to do Mondays and Wednesdays with the possibility of a few extra shows here and there as she feels inclined to do so. But let me pull up my iPad here. It's Face ID. Oh, wait, it's not opening. Sorry, because come on. It's not opening. Yes, I was going to, because I am so technically stupid. I know there are ways where you can flash images on the screen and so forth. I'm going to do it a very low-tech way. This is what I did last week, but this is how Anastasia, yes, there's her picture, and that's her channel, The Sacred Spears. Hold it up for just a moment, and I may do this a few times throughout the show because I really want to plug her and help her to get started. And I thank you for the people who joined her last week. It meant so much to her. She was so grateful. But she's going to be doing a live stream at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 o'clock East Coast time. Anastasia, any of you who have watched her, Joyce, I know you know her quite well, and Andy, you've been coming on watching her show. She's a very intelligent person. She's a beautiful artist. She's a singer, writer, a painter. She hopes to do stand-up comedy. She wants to write a one-woman show. But she's a communicator, a great communicator. And I actually urged her a little bit to give this a try, just, like I do, just come on here. she's much like me, where she can talk off the top of her head a lot of different subjects, which I seem to be able to do also. But it's something very healthy for her. She has so much to give, so much to offer the world. Yes, I know I'm speaking in cliches, but it's true. She has so much to give the world and offer. And I'm very excited to see where she's going to go with this live stream. So, holding up again, that's how you can find her, the Sacred Spears. She will be on not too long after me, 7 p.m. Pacific time, 10 East Coast time. And I'm hopefully you can figure out for Mountain Central from there. She's been on this show a number of times. And and I was even a guest on her show last Thursday. We can just play off of each other and start talking. We can get very silly and goofy and crazy. And it's really the chemistry I have also with Dr. Whimsy on Tuesdays. That show tends to be much more serious and much more structured because it is Whimsy's show. And I'm the co-host, but I like to think she's Johnny Carson and I'm Ed McMahon. I always strive to remember it's her show first and foremost, and I'm there to give support. But we have a lot of fun together. We used to work together here in Los Angeles in the health industry. And I've said it before, we used to get in trouble for talking too much. Yes, two adult professionals, and we would be chided by our boss like we were in kindergarten because we talked too much at work. Well, now we get to bring that to our show on Tuesdays, and people have been really resonating to it, responding so nicely. And I said to Whimsy, I think this is our formula. Yes, we talk about a lot of serious topics, and God only knows there's a lot of topics to talk about tomorrow in the news. I'm not going to go into it here, but you know what I mean. We managed to still put humor and levity into it. And my real life job, I work here from home. I work as her assistant, and I make a lot of calls to her clients all over the country. And many of those clients watch our show on Tuesdays. And I just get great feedback, people saying they love when we're laughing and being silly with each other. And so we've been playing that up more while still being serious. But Anastasia and I also have that chemistry. And I just felt that Anastasia would be a natural. And I think Joyce and Andy, you've watched her, you would agree with me. I don't know if any of you others have, but she's doing quite well. And I can't wait to see what she does tonight. And it was Saturday. I mentioned that I went to Palm Springs for a day trip. Palm Springs is a little over 2 hours south of Los Angeles, south and going east out in the high desert, obviously. And it was for I have a very, very dear friend. I've known him for 32 years, and his spouse passed away a couple of months ago, and it was the memorial service. And I very much wanted to be there, for my friend, just to, it was a celebration of life. Yes, there were some tears, but there was also some laughter. And I realized I was there. I like memorial services much better than funerals. Funerals almost always are somber, where okay, Sasha, she's saying, I don't want to be on camera now. Well, come on, Sasha. No, she's pouting a little. But come on, let people see what a sweet little girl you are. She's saying, nah, I don't want people to see what a sweet little girl I am. I want them to see what a little heathen I am. Joyce, I hope your kitty is doing well. Maya, there she is. No, I lost track of what I was saying. Yeah, I was talking about Palm Springs and the memorial service, and Anastasia wanted to go with me. She had met my friend Sven, my wonderful Dutch friend. We go back 32 years, and it was a celebration of life. I'd say there was maybe 20% tears, but a good 80% of laughter and joy, and just people getting up and saying what they loved. And it went nicely. So while we were down there, Anastasia told me she had not been to Palm Springs since she was a little girl. I said, you're kidding. I thought you'd been down here many times. I thought everybody in LA had gone down to Palm Springs a number of times. So we were close enough, like a mile away from the main part of town, went there and walked around, and thank goodness the temperature had cooled off, because the day before had been 108 degrees. We were there, it cooled off to a freezing, frigid 94 degrees. Yes, get out your sweater and your scarf and your earmuffs, but it was at least a little more bearable. So we were able to walk around, and we had a really nice meal in a Thai restaurant, and then went out for some mango sorbet and walked around. And one of the things they have in Palm Springs is this 22-foot tall Marilyn Monroe statue. And it is so impressive. It's the sort of thing you would think would be kitschy and tacky, and it's not. It's a beautiful tribute to Marilyn. It was sculpted out of metal and painted. And it's Marilyn doing her famous 7-year itch pose, with her billowing white dress over the subway grating, only it's 22 feet tall. So I don't know if I could find a picture on here. I should have done this before the show. And this is the low-tech way of doing this. Let's see if I have anything marked here as a favorite where I can find it quickly. I may not. Shoot. Something I could find it, but anyway, you can look it up online, the giant Marilyn Monroe statue in Palm Springs. Let me look at another section here. I wanted to show you this. I had some cute pictures of Anastasia while we were there. Maybe I can find it. Bear with me. I don't want to waste a lot of time looking through my iPad here. Because I'm an artist, I save a lot of reference pictures on here, and sometimes it just gets to be a bit too much. I need to clean this up. I need to declutter. Oh, shoot. I thought I could find my Marilyn Monroe pictures on here. Why are they not here? Oh, well. Oh, yes. I found it. There we go. That's Anastasia standing underneath. I have to hold it this way so I don't get a reflection. But do you see the 22-foot high Marilyn Monroe statue? It is just really awesome. And when you see it in person, it's become one of the great landmarks of Palm Springs. It's like the thing everybody has to go see once you're there. And I don't know if Anastasia initially wanted to see it, but once she was there, she was mesmerized. You can see her standing underneath between Marilyn's legs. So anyway, there it is. There's me. So that's my low-tech way of showing the picture. Thank you for bearing with me just right there. What was it? Let me look at some of the comments here. I've lost my place here. I'm so sorry. It's very hard for me to look into the camera and talk and read the comments. So please forgive me if I miss a comment, a question, if there's anything you want to call to my attention. It's a little hard to just scroll here without losing my place altogether. Oh, good. I'm fine, Chuck. Thank you, Andy. But I never want to be rude to any of you. I never want to slight any of you. If I don't mention a comment or question, please know it's a sincere error. But I did want to show you this picture of Marilyn Monroe. Oh, wait, here's one more. If I can do this without the glare, that Anastasia is standing under Marilyn. It's almost surrealistic, this statue. And I think the artist who did it also did, the famous V-Day picture, in Times Square when World War II ended, the soul, I think it's the sailor and the nurse, and they're kissing in Times Square. It's like one of the most famous photographs of the 20th century, iconic. And the artist who did the Marilyn Monroe also did a giant metal version of that. I'm not sure where that's located. And I think the Marilyn Monroe statue was originally somewhere back east. It might have been New York. I could be wrong on that, but it was back east. And then it got sent out here, out west, and has its permanent home now in Palm Springs. I hope it's permanent home. But because it's made out of metal, and because Palm Springs gets so hot. I mean, it's not unusual for Palm Springs to get up to 115 degrees and 122 degrees. It's done that. This metal statue out in the hot, intense sun gets hellishly hot. And I heard somebody touched it and got third-degree burns on their hand. You have to be very careful with the statue and the location of it and the intense sun. But it was fun. It was a reminder. It's a good thing to do day trips. Just get out of town, for one day or so. Do something like that. Shake up your life a little. Talking in cliches here, broaden your horizons. But it did us both a lot of good. And I was also glad to be there for my dear, dear friend Sven. He's always been like a brother to me. Younger brother, because when I first knew him, he had just come from Holland. I was 19 years old. And what bonded us, Lucille Ball. He was a big, big Lucy fan. And in Holland, he had only seen the Lucy show. And I can't claim the credit for it. It was another friend of ours who introduced him to his very first I Love Lucy episode. And the first episode he put on was Vitamita Vegemin. Now that's your introduction to Lucy. And I've done that before. I had a friend from Norway who had never seen I Love Lucy. So I put that on my computer and showed him. And then I also had a friend from Australia, from Sydney. And he was coming to LA. He wanted to check it out, see if he wanted to live here. And I said, well, you can stay with me a few days. And it came up in conversation. He didn't know who Lucille Ball was. I guess in Australia, I know it's played there, but maybe it hasn't played for many years. So I said, well, he wasn't familiar. And I said, well, I've got something to show you. And my friend was an actor. That's the reason he wanted to come to LA. He wanted to come here to pursue movies and television. Unfortunately, he didn't have too much luck, but that's why he came here. He had been lucky in Australia. I think he had been on a couple of minor series, and he had done some commercials. In fact, I think he said he was one time he was the commercial spokesperson for Pizza Hut. Pardon me, my nose is itchy. I'm not picking it, my nose itches. But he was the commercial spokesman for Pizza Hut in Australia. I think it was Pizza Hut. It was some American pizza chain that was there. And he came here. So he was trained as an actor, and particularly trained in film acting, which I am also. I studied with the wonderful Dee Wallace, who played the mother in E.T. the Extraterrestrial. Excellent, excellent teacher. Very fine actress also. But anyway, he had an understanding of the technical aspects of what an actor goes through. I started to say what an artist goes through. Well, an actor is an artist. It's the same difference. And the beautiful thing about, the amazing thing about that Vitamita Vegemin sequence, which I should know the exact minutes, but it's roughly a 10-minute or so continuous scene with no stops, because they filmed that show with 3 cameras working simultaneously, one for close-ups, one mid-range, and one for distance and angles and all. And anybody who's watched the Vitamita Vegemin episode knows that is Lucille Ball's masterpiece. In fact, it's one of the greatest pieces of comedic acting ever. And my friend was like, she's doing this all in one take, because film acting, typically you will do something like, you'll break that up into many little bits, a little bit here and there, because of all the transitions or different angles and what have you. Lucy went through the whole performance, like a stage performance, but only playing to the cameras. It's just, there were no stops whatsoever. And I know that because I have talked to people, since it passed on, like Jerry Hausner, who played, he played Jerry the agent in I Love Lucy. This one, he was Joe, the stage manager. I talked with Jerry Hausner. I also spoke with, oh my gosh, I'm blanking out on his name. I'm embarrassed, but he was the real life script clerk on I Love Lucy. And he's in the episode. If you watch it, you'll see this little guy with a crew cut and glasses, and he's got his back turned to the camera, and he's in a director's chair, and he's holding a script. And the reason he's in that, and the name is going to come to me, I am embarrassed because I used to be acquainted with him. I used to talk to him. He even directed episodes of the Lucy Show later on, but he started out as the script clerk. And Lucy was so terrified she was not going to get through that scene because it was very, very complicated dialogue, and it was very fast paced. And then she had to play getting increasingly intoxicated. So she worried she was going to blank out on a line. And she got the bright idea. Maury Thompson, that's his name. Maury Thompson, because she saw Maury on the side of the stage, and she said, Maury, get over here. And she said, you're going to be in the show. And she called the makeup artist. Hey, make up Maury. He's going to be in the episode. And she purposely wanted Maury sitting there with the script, playing the script clerk in the commercial. But it was so, if she got tongue-tied or lost, she could ask Maury for the line and do it in character in the situation. And there is one moment where she didn't have to call on Maury. But if you know the episode, the director is having her, do the scene over and over and over. And of course, each time she takes a spoonful of vitamin to Vegemin, 23% alcohol, and she just gets bombed. But anyway, there's a moment where the director says, okay, take it from the beginning. Take it. Okay, let's do it over. And Lucy, she stops for a moment and pauses. It was real. She actually had lost her place. And in character, she stayed perfectly in character. And she goes, director, I don't know where to start unless I start again at the beginning. And the director goes, okay, start again at the beginning. And then it's, hello, friends, I'm your vitamin to Vegemin girl. But that was for real. That was Lucy saying, I don't know where to start unless I started again at the beginning. But she didn't need Maury, but he was like a security blanket for her. God, Maury Thompson. How could I forget his name? So he was there on that episode. So anyway, my friend from Australia, I got to get back to the point of the story, was watching this. He was like, how... In a trained actor, and he was going, how is she doing this? How is she doing all these transitions and all this comedic timing? And she's playing off the audience. And Lucy, yeah, the greatest comedian who ever lived, but she was also a superb dramatic actress. She was like a method actress. She was really believing it. She was, you watch her eyes, you watch her on a big screen TV, she becomes drunk. She becomes intoxicated. It's in her eyes, it's in her body language, it's in her voice. It's just magical. And my friend from Australia was just like, this is one of the best actors I've ever seen in my life. And he kept saying to me, you mean she did this in one take? Yes, one take. And that's so rare now because anybody who goes to watch situation comedies being filmed now, where you sit in the audience, which I've done from time to time here in LA. And I can tell you sometimes tapings or filmings, whatever you want to call them, will go on for over 5 hours because a lot of the actors are not prepared. They blow their lines or they need to do retake after retake after retake. And Lucy hated that. Lucy was very much about getting the show filmed from top to finish in 45 minutes. And the reason there was the extra time was because they had to stop the cameras to put, load film in the cameras, that type of thing. Or on occasion, there'd be where actors would have to go off and they'd have to change their costumes or their makeup or something like that, So that's why the half-hour show took typically about 45 minutes to film all the way through. But that was just remarkable. And a lot of that had to do, Lucy and Desi owned the show. They owned Desi Lou. They paid the bills, and they were very frugal minded because, time is money on a film set. When you've got a huge crew of people, electricians, lighting people, camera people, makeup artists, script clerks, all that, the longer it takes to film, you've got to pay all those people. So they were very much about, let's rehearse the show meticulously to where we can get out there and just get in front of the cameras and boom, 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 film it. And it's quite a testament because I Love Lucy nearly 75 years later. I say nearly because this year it will turn 74. So almost 3/4 of a century. Those shows are still fabulous. They're just fabulous. They're sheer perfection. They've got magic, but they were meticulously rehearsed and prepared, and they just went out there and did them. And also, I've told these stories before, but I've talked to so many people who worked on the show. Many are dead now, but back particularly in the 80s and 90s, I got to talk to a lot of them in the early 2000s. I told the story of Irma Cusley not too long ago, Lucy's hairdresser, who told me that Lucy was definitely did not nearly drown to death in the grape vat, even though that myth keeps getting perpetuated. What Irma said to me was she was horrified because it was not in the original script for Lucy's head to get dunked. There was grape juice, but it was like an inch thick, but it was just enough for her hair to get all wet, in the grape juice. If you see the episode, Lucy is a mess by the time they're done. And Irma was just horrified because Lucy's hair, to get that hair color, that beautiful red, her hair had to be bleached. And then henna was put on top of that. But when you bleach hair, it gets very porous. And Irma stood there in the wings in horror. Oh my God, Lucy's hair is going to be permanently dyed purple. How am I going to get that grape juice out of her hair? I mean, she told me this. She said, had it been scripted, that was going to happen. She said, I would have put a wig on Lucy. Lucy on occasion would wear wigs on the show if it was a very messy stunt. And Irma said the reason they had to do that partially was because, if something went wrong, were those rare occasions where there'd be a camera glitch or a mistake or something. So if they had to do a retake, that way Irma could just pull the wig off and put another wig on Lucy and they could just go on as usual. But sometimes it was to protect Lucy, like the episode where they poured all the honey over her head. Irma said that was an example when they used a wig. They had like a plastic cap on under that and a wig, and that was to save Lucy from having all that honey in her real hair. But yeah, so Irma said it was a yes and a no. That was not supposed to happen as it happened. It was funny as hell and it worked, but that was not true about Lucy nearly drowning. But that was just how they were prepared. But anyway, Lucy and Desi were very much about the budget and keeping costs down. And so they were sticklers about getting that show finished in just straight through, without any if they could do it without any retakes. And there are even a small handful of episodes where one of them will make a mistake with the dialogue, but they cover for it. There's one where Lucy makes a mistake and Desi calls her attention to it, but he does it as Ricky in character, very cleverly, and then Lucy gets it and she corrects the line. But they did it while the cameras were still running, and they were so adept at what they did that they made it almost invisible where you barely even noticed it. But there was one story I wanted to mention about Maury Thompson. This was a cute story he told me. He said the first season of the show, the kitchen, with all the little props and things, there were these little canisters, like it was a cookie jar and like flour and sugar canisters and things like that. And I forget if it was a jar or it was a canister, but Maury really liked it. And Lucy said, "Oh, more if you like it so much. Why don't you take it home with you?" And the director of the show, Mark Daniels, said, "No, Lucy, he can't do that. It will spoil the continuity and people are going to notice that's missing from the set." And Lucy said, "If that's what people are going to notice at home, a missing cookie jar, then we're not doing our jobs very well now, are we?" And she had a good point there. And another thing, that was back in the days when I Love Lucy was seen on little tiny black and white TV screens where you probably wouldn't see a little detail like that. Now you can watch the show in 4K ultra high definition. Like me, I've got a 65-inch TV here. You can see that show looking probably more pristine and clearer than it looked when it originally aired back in the 1950s. And now you would notice some mistakes like that. I better check some comments here. What was that, Andy? Tiddlywinks McGillicuddy? What? I missed what was before that. Let's see. Oh, you were talking about the Maryland statue here. Let's see. What was this, Andy? Who's the character named Joe? Yeah, I was talking about Jerry Hausner. Oh, he was a sweet guy. Tiny little man. I'm 6'2", and I don't know what his actual height was, but I'm guessing he was like 4'10", 4'11". He was a tiny little man, but just so sweet. And when I met him, he was 83 years old. So it was, but he still had that voice, and there was still enough of him that still looked like Jerry. So I got a big kick out of meeting him. I've met so many people from that show. Doris Singleton, I met her many times. Played Carolyn Appleby. In fact, Doris lived to be 92 years old, and I got to see her about 6 months before she passed away. And she was beautiful right to the end. And she had that very distinctive voice. And, and she told me she had traveled the world, and everywhere she went, she said literally Italy, France, Spain, anywhere she went, she'd open her mouth and start talking, and people go, "Carolyn Appleby, it's you, Carolyn Appleby," because that voice was so distinctive. It always gave her away. Oh yes, Andy, yes, mention A Death from Sanford and Son, the lady who played Donna. Yes, I know. She passed away at the age of 95, and I'm trying to think of her name, but she also played Verdi on the Waltons, I think for all 9 seasons of the Waltons. And she was just a marvelous actress. And, I love the TV show The Waltons. And I was friends with Ellen Corby, who played Grandma Walton. And on Facebook, I get postings from a number of the cast members on there. And a lot of them, when I say kids, they're all like in their probably, I guess, in their 60s now, because the show's, it's been 50 years since it was on. They're all in like 60s, even 70s. I saw Richard Thomas is 74 now, played John Boyd, but they all had lovely tributes to her. They said she was such a wonderful actress to work with, but they said she was so warm and so sweet in real life. They all loved her very much. And she was a beautiful presence on that show. And from time to time, they weren't afraid to do some tough stories, about racial inequality in the 1930s in the South. And they did it very tastefully and gave her some lovely moments on the show. So yes, thank you for bringing her up, Andy. Oh yeah, Lucy's name. Yeah, Andy, her name, her maiden name was McGillicuddy. Her full name was Lucille Esmeralda McGillicuddy. And like Lucille Ball, Lucy McGillicuddy Ricardo also came from Jamestown, New York, which is next to Celeron, New York. And it's actually Celeron where her childhood home was located, even though Lucy always said Jamestown. But the two towns are so close together, they're almost intertwined. And of course, my pride and joy is the fact that my artwork, my original paintings of the Ball family that I did of Lucy's mother and of her baby brother Fred and her grandparents, and did a painting of Lucy as a 9-year-old girl. They all hang permanently in the living room of Lucille Ball's childhood home, which is open to the public for tours. A wonderful lady who is my friend Mary Rappaport. She's a huge Lucy fan, and like me, a real stickler for authenticity and getting things right. So she worked when she bought the house. It was in terrible, terrible state. It was almost ready to be demolished. Wood rot and termites. It was just falling apart. And at her own tremendous expense, she restored that house to pristine condition from top to bottom. And she went out of her way for authenticity. She worked with Lucy's brother, Fred, who was 91 years old, who helped her to authenticate everything. He knew what was original in the house, what wasn't, but he even knew where the furnishings had been, and he knew who had bought a lot of the furnishings. And so Mary was able to track down people who bought things, and she was able to get the furnishings back and put them back in the house. And up in the attic were some swatches of the original wallpaper. And Fred remembered what went to each room, like living room, kitchen, bedrooms. Mary had the wallpapers. She went, I think they had to be hand silk screened. Again, a great expense. Had the wallpapers perfectly replicated everything. It is something else. And she commissioned me to do the paintings of the Ball family. And I could not be more proud or more excited to have my artwork in that home. The Ball family lived in that house from 1920 to 1927. And here it is exactly 100 years later. And my presence is in there. And anyway, I'm proud of it. It means a lot to me. It's my favorite. People ask me, what's the favorite art project you ever did? Well, that's it, hands down. And I was going to segue here. My God, I've been on here. It's 6:22. Talk a little bit more because I certainly don't want to. Oh yeah, thank you for that, Kate. Thank you. I did them about 3 years ago, and if ever I put my heart and soul into something, it was that. I'm a stickler in authenticity also. Mary wanted the paintings to look like, obviously done by the same artist, but in our mutual research, it was very common in those days for traveling artists to go around from town to town and paint portraits. It was a big deal to have your portrait painted in your home. I wish it were still considered a big deal to have your portrait painted for your home. Oddly enough, people aren't so into that now. I say that because I am a professional artist, and sometimes I have to really scramble to get commissions. So I know this, but back at that time, there would be traveling artists. And she said, Mary said to me, I want these to look like that, like a traveling artist came and painted these. So I did my research. I studied, I went online. I did a lot of studying for the style of those paintings, how artists painted back in those days. And I did everything I could to internalize that and to paint in that style. I wanted to make them look authentic. And Kate, do I ever paint self-portraits? Nah, I don't find myself interesting enough to paint myself. I have done it. Most artists have, but I rather paint other people. But thank you for asking. But because I cared so much about the authenticity, I kept Lucy's autobiography beside me the whole time, and I had it marked to the pages where she described her childhood so I could get into the energy and the spirit of her childhood and of that house while I was painting them. And Mary sent me a shadow box. Oh gosh, I wish I had it accessible here. A shadow box with pieces of the house. She told me one wall side of the building could not be saved. She did everything she could to save everything original, but one wall was just so irretrievably lost because of wood rot and termites. So what she did, she saved all of the wood and everything, and cut it up into pieces and made them into shadow boxes. And she sells them at her gift store there at the house. You can get them. In fact, you can go online, lucylane.com, www.lucylane.com. I think that's still the website. I don't know if she still has pieces of the house in shadow boxes, but she used to make shadow boxes where there'd be like little nails and wires and hooks and pieces of wood. And anyway, she sent me one. So I had that beside me, the literal house beside me. And I also asked Mary to send me a sample, if she had it, of the wallpaper in the living room. And she said, I have a whole bolt of it left. So she cut me off a nice big piece. So on my easel, I pinned the wallpaper. I had Lucy's autobiography with me, and I had the shadow box. And then I had Lucy's spirit with me, frankly. You think Lucy was not there with me? Oh, let me tell you, Lucy is a very strong-willed soul, and she was definitely there guiding and putting in her input. But I wanted that. I wanted these paintings to be the best I could possibly do, and I put so much love into them. And I didn't mean to overtalk that, but that it does tie in with that. What was this, Andy Chuck? Back to the statue. Have you ever seen any other famous celebrity statues? Well, I'm sure I have. I got to think on that. Well, let's see. Richmond, Virginia, where I went to college and I lived for a few years. There is a wonderful statue of Bill Bojangles Robinson. He's the wonderful African-American tap dancer who was in a lot of Shirley Temple's movies. You know, like the one where they're dancing up the staircase in Little Rebel. Anyway, he was from Richmond, and he donated money to buy a stoplight in front of a grade school because there were children who had been hit by cars there. So he wanted a stoplight there for the safety of those children. And it was years later they erected a statue in his honor. It's quite wonderful. But I'm trying to think. I know I've seen other statues of celebrities. Let me think on that. I'm just blanking on it right now. But certainly the Marilyn is, you saw from the picture I showed, it is quite impressive. It's something all to itself. There's a wonderful statue of Lucy in Celeron, her hometown, as you likely know. Just saw a pop up from Anastasia. And Anastasia, if you're watching, I can't read my messages right now because I'm doing the show, but I will check it after I'm done, and I will be watching your show at 7, and I'll give another plug for you. But anyway, there's a beautiful, beautiful statue of Lucy as Lucy Ricardo in Celeron. It's in Celeron Park. And in Lucy's era as a little girl, Celeron Park was basically like an amusement park, you know, where there'd be tents and sideshows and, like cotton candy and hot dog vendors. And Lucy, even for a time, worked as a hot dog vendor. She talked about this in an interview, how she loved when she was a little girl going, get your red hots, get your red hots. So anyway, that's where they erected the statue because that was a place she loved very much. And there's and there's also a statue of Lucy in Palm Springs, Kate. Thank you. It's Lucy sitting on a park bench on one of the streets on the strip there. In fact, I sat in it and I had my picture taken. I just don't know where it is right now. But anyway, it's a beautiful statue, but there's notoriety around it, or at least around the first statue. The first statue, you may have heard the term Scary Lucy. There was originally a statue erected, and it was just horrible. It was, you can look it up online. If you type in Scary Lucy statue, you'll see just what I mean. It looked nothing like Lucy. It looked so amateurish and so bad. Someone said it looked more like Aunt Bee than it did Lucy. It was just really weird. And there was a lot of scorn and a lot of hate. And I heard that the poor artist who did it was so devastated that he packed up his art supplies and said that he would never sculpt ever again for the rest of his life. And I think he died soon afterwards. It's kind of sad. But anyway, the statue was so hated that the town of Celeron commissioned, I wish I could think of the artist's name. She's marvelous. And she's like one of the best of the best. And they commissioned her to do the statue right. And it is gorgeous. Yes, again, you can find it online. Lucy statue, Celeron, New York. There's Scary Lucy, and then there's the other Lucy. But it's one of the best likenesses I've ever seen. But the artist, she knew the responsibility she was facing because that other artist had faced so much scorn and ridicule. She knew she had to be on her toes and be at her best when she did the statue, and she was. Kate, I remember the Scary Lucy statue. Glad it was replaced. Well, you know what they did? They didn't get rid of the statue. They just moved the quote unquote Scary Lucy statue to another part of the park. And David Poulin, I don't know who that is. It was a woman who did the statue. I know that. I could look it up, but I don't want to get back in here and be spending time on my iPad and ignoring you people. But had I known this would have come up in conversation, I would have researched this a little bit. But maybe I don't know if I can find the picture of me sitting on the park bench with Lucy statue. Pardon me here. I don't want to be on here too long. Okay, I think I know where I can find it. So I think my friend Anastasia sent me a copy of the picture. I'm just looking through some messages here, but where is it? Pardon me, folks. By the way, great picture, isn't it? This is who's gonna be doing a live stream in about 28 minutes, Anastasia Pavlov. But let me find the picture of the Lucy statue in Palm Springs. I don't know if you can see it, but it was nighttime, so it's kind of dark. Not the best picture, but you can see it's Lucy Ricardo sitting on a bench, and I was sitting on the bench and the picture was taken. I don't think there was another one. I don't know if that's a little clearer. I'm sorry, it's hard to do this without getting glare on the iPad. You can't really see it, but anyway, if you type in Lucy statue Palm Springs, you can see what it really looks like, and it's a lovely tribute. One more right there. Anyway, Lucy and Desi used to have a home in Palm Springs, so their presence was very much felt there. And their daughter Lucille Arnaz and her husband Larry Luckenbill, they just celebrated their 45th wedding anniversary, by the way. They live there now. They were in Connecticut for a number of years, but they decided they wanted to come back to Palm Springs. And little Lucie Arnaz, Lucie, their daughter, she and her brother Desi Jr. grew up there, and so they had very fond memories. And you will see pictures of Lucy all throughout Palm Springs. She's like one of the most famous of all their residences there. Residents, not residents. Sorry. Let's see, what are some other comments here? Okay. Oh, David Poulin. Okay, he's the one. Thank you, Andy. He's the one who did the first statue, the one that took so much scorn that ended up getting called Scary Lucy. And I found out from Mary Rappaport that he was so devastated because people were really cruel, really nasty to him. And he just said, I will never sculpt again. He didn't. He never sculpted again, and he died soon afterwards. He was just so brokenhearted. Joyce, I love Mr. Bojangles. Wasn't he wonderful? You know, I read Shirley Temple's autobiography many years ago, and she loved him and he loved her. They were family. They were just family. And Shirley got married when she was 17. And she said that Bojangles was very, very protective of her. And he walked up to her husband, her new husband, and said, you lay a finger on her, you ever hurt her, and I will cut you. I will personally go after you, and I will cut you. And Shirley was standing there like, but she put that in her autobiography. He was so protective of her. Yeah, Lawrence Luckinbill was in Boys in the Band. Very fine actor. He's, I think, 90 years old now. Lucille Arnaz, she was born just a few weeks before I Love Lucy. In fact, just before her mother's 40th birthday, in 1951. So she's going to be 74 next month. Was there a tap dancer by the name of Sandman? I don't know. Maybe one of the viewers out there can shed some light on that. But Bill Bojangles Robinson was just a marvelous, marvelous dancer, and apparently just had a heart of gold. What was it? Another comment. Does Mary Tyler Moore have a statue? Yes, she does. She has. Back when, I don't know if TV Land, that channel, is still big or not. I don't have basic cable anymore. I just have streaming channels. But TV Land, for a while, when they were showing a lot of the old shows, as a publicity thing, they were commissioning statues of famous TV people and putting them in like their hometowns or cities. Anyway, Mary Tyler Moore, when they filmed the opening credits in Minneapolis, where Mary Richards lived. And of course, we all know the famous scene where she takes her cap off and she tosses it up in the air. And it was in front of this big outdoor mall area. So the statue is of Mary throwing up the cap, and they put the statue in the very spot where Mary stood when they filmed it for the opening credits. And there's also a statue of Elizabeth Montgomery, with the witch's hat on and everything, and on her broomstick. And they put that in Salem, Massachusetts. There's one of Don Knotts as Barney Fife, and I understand they put that in his hometown in West Virginia. And Frank Sutton, who played Sergeant Carter on Gomer Pyle, they did a statue of him and put that in his hometown, which I think was in Tennessee. I could be wrong on that. And I think there was one done of Bob Newhart. I'm not sure where that was put, from the Bob Newhart show. And can't remember if there were any other statues. But yes, to answer your question, Mary Tyler Moore very much has a statue. Oh, and there was one done of Henry Winkler as Fonzie. And I forget where they put that. Oh, and by the way, he's a sweet guy. I met him once. But he's as nice as they come. And when I was growing up, Happy Days was a really big deal. Fonzie was a big deal. And my sister and I both loved that show. And the day I met him, that night I came home from work, I called my sister and I said, I met Fonzie. Hey, it was so cool. Trying to see if there are any other comments here. I've been on about an hour and a half now. I may wrap this up very soon unless there's another question or comment or anything here. I'm hoping I haven't missed anything big here. What was this, KDM? John Singer Sargent. Yes, I agree. Amazing portrait artist. Oh my goodness, yes. Well, I studied art history in college. Very familiar with his work. Let's see where. I'm trying to see if there's anything I've missed here. I hope we've covered everything. It's never my intention to be rude to anyone. You're all so wonderful to come on here and join me, and you're so faithful. And man, it's hot outside. It's hot. It's been hot here too. Actually, I've been seeing on the news, the East Coast seems to be getting the brunt of this. We have this weird thing here. Whenever we have a heat wave on the West Coast, the East Coast gets cold or cool. And then it's vice versa. And I think it has to do with the pressure system, how it pushes the heat and the cold one direction or the other. But it's still kind of warm and muggy here. I have my air conditioning on right now, and you probably can hear a fan blowing in the background. I don't really like having this fan blowing because I know it makes noise, but I find that if I don't have the fan, I start sweating. That's because it gets muggy even with the air conditioning on. So that's what I have to do. I've got to find another way around this. But it's supposed to warm up here. I was grateful it quote unquote, cooled off for Palm Springs. Yes, it got sort of an ungodly 108 degrees. It was only 94 degrees. But I was there once when it was 116. And it was when I This was, God, a long time ago, early 90s. And it was right after the Jim, I've told this, the Jim and Tammy Baker scandal. And it was the house they used to live in Palm Springs. And I have a well to do friend who bought the house. And I came down there to visit, and thankfully he had a beautiful swimming pool with lots of palm trees and shade. And that's the thing about the desert. Literally, you get in the shade, it can feel like 30 degrees or more cooler. It's the weirdest thing, but it's a nice thing that you can at least escape the heat that way. And I remember that about it, but I was still like, I thought 116 degrees, and it can get much hotter there. And I don't like heat. I don't do well with heat. I have friends around Bannon and Palm Springs, that area, trying to get me to move down there because it is a lot cheaper to live there than Los Angeles. Los Angeles is a very, very expensive city to live in. And I would save a lot of money down there. But there's a reason it's so much cheaper. It's like you get 8 months of the year where it's very livable, and then you've got 4 months of the year where you get incinerated and your air conditioning breaks down, you die. You can't live without your air conditioning. And I don't know if I'm ready for that sort of thing. So I'm sticking it out in Los Angeles right now. But I just, yeah, I just thank you again for, I'm pulling it up again. This is my Mickey Mouse primitive way of promoting Anastasia, but that's how you can find her channel, The Sacred Spears. And I want to give her some plugs for a while, at least while I'm doing my show, because she has a small, like when I started out doing this show, I started doing my videos, I had very, very small numbers, as most people do, unless you just happen to be very famous or something. Usually you start out, you don't have big numbers in the beginning, and you have to work really, really hard to build up subscribers and so forth. And that's where she is right now. And she's posting videos and she's doing her live streams. And I said, well, I'll do whatever I can to help you. I'll just mention you on here. And if anyone feels so inclined to check her out, I mean, she may not be your cup of tea, your preference, just like me either, any of us, she got a few subscribers, and then I think one person unsubscribed, and I had to remind her that, there are going to people who are going to dissent. They may not like what you do or whatever. Just don't take it personally. Just like I also prepared her, you may get some nasty little comments and stuff, because we all do, right, Joyce? I don't know if that's happened to you with your show, but I had a few, and I tend, I know we're supposed to be thick-skinned about this and just accept this comes with the territory, but it does hurt. And I'm sensitive, right, Joyce? Anastasia, she's a dear, loving soul, and she's very, very sensitive. And I said, no, please, please understand. You're going to get the occasional mean person may criticize your hair. I don't like your glasses. I don't like the way you talk. People will be like that. And said, don't take it personally, or don't take it personally if somebody unsubscribes to you. You're going to find your audience. You're going to find the right people. Any of you have watched her, like Joyce and Andy, she's different from me. Anastasia is a little more outspoken than I am. She's a little braver than I am to talk about certain topics, but that's who she is, and that's what she excels in. But she's got such a great mind and intellect. And hey, I can get on here. I can talk about old Hollywood and Lucy. She can talk about world literature. She's so well educated. She's got so many topics, and plus she's a born healer. And I think she would make a wonderful therapist. She's got those qualities about her. And I've encouraged her to talk about her personal life, to talk about things that have happened to her. I'm not revealing anything here because she's talked about it herself. In the same week, she got fired from her job and she got dumped by her boyfriend. And I have reminded her that maybe this is to make way for some much bigger things, because I think she can do better on both counts. But anyway, she had a couple of really big blows that week, and she was lost and in despair. And I said, you're such a natural talker. You're a natural communicator. And she's always had fun when she's come on here with me. And I said, why don't you try it? Try it, see how it works for you. And so far she's doing, Andy and Joyce, I'd say you'd agree with me, she's doing a really good job. She's really good at what she's doing. So I'm just going to hold it up one more time. The Sacred Spears, that's her channel. That's her picture. If you feel so inclined, please go over after this and check her out. She comes on in 15 minutes. That's why I've got to wrap this up soon, because I don't want to be competition. I want to be a viewer, and I want to be giving her support myself. So anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. I thank you. I thank you so much for being here. And also, I will be on tomorrow. We had to take a couple of weeks off with Whimsy's show because she was out of town, but we are definitely going on tomorrow. Taco Tuesdays. Her channel is the Oracle of Whimsy. And I do that show with her, and we're going to have an author interview tomorrow, and we're going to be talking about all, shall we say, this shitstorm of stuff going on in the news right now. Trying to summarize it, but I'm going to sign out for now. Thank you very much. I will be here, I promise, same time next week on this channel, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. And thank you so very much. And please join my friend Anastasia on her channel. Okay. Love you and goodbye.